The first time I caught Karen crouched by my car, it was so bizarre that for a split second I thought I was imagining things. It was late in the afternoon, the kind of golden hour when the sun dips behind the houses in the cul-de-sac and paints everything in a warm glow. But there she was, kneeling, not gracefully, but with that rigid, nosy determination that she carried around like a badge of honor. Her floral blouse was practically glowing in the fading light. Her oversized sunglasses perched high on her face, and in her hand was a set of keys she was using like a makeshift scraper. She wasn't dropping her groceries or tying her shoe. No, she was clawing away at the bright yellow sticker on my windshield with all the fury of someone trying to win a war. The sound of the metal key scratching against glass sent a jolt down my spine. It wasn't just the noise, it was the fact that I knew exactly what she was ripping away. That sticker, ugly as it might have looked to her, wasn't something I had chosen to slap on my car like a bumper sticker or some tacky decal. It was a court-ordered notice, issued after a mistake I made months earlier that I'd been working hard to put behind me. Part of my probation agreement required that I display it prominently on my car, visible from the outside at all times, so that authorities, or anyone who needed to, could confirm compliance. It wasn't negotiable. Without it, I was in violation. I stopped dead in my driveway, my keys halfway out of my pocket, my mouth dry. For a second, I couldn't even find my voice. It was like watching a slow-motion disaster. Karen muttered to herself, her lips moving quickly as she grumbled about standards and bringing down property values. Her voice carried that shrill edge that made everyone in the neighborhood instantly tense up. She wasn't doing this because she cared about me, or because she thought. She was being helpful. She was doing it because it fed into her strange addiction to control. Everything within the HOA's jurisdiction. She leaned closer to the windshield, the chain on her neck swaying forward as she scraped harder. The sticker gave way in little curls, the adhesive pulling against the glass with a faint tearing sound. Each fragment that fluttered to the ground felt like a countdown ticking louder in my ears. My chest tightened. If she destroyed that sticker, it wouldn't just mean I'd have to replace it. It would mean I was out of compliance. Non-compliance meant a call to my probation officer, which meant possible fines, hearings, and worst of all, the risk of jail time. All because my neighbor couldn't stand the sight of a bright rectangle on a windshield. I finally found my voice. "Karen, what the hell are you doing?" She froze mid-scrape, then turned toward me with that look I'd seen her use on delivery drivers, landscapers, and even kids riding their bikes down the sidewalk. A mixture of disdain and smug superiority, as if she were the sheriff of this tiny suburban town and I was just some outlaw she'd caught red-handed. "Oh, you're welcome," she said, her voice dripping with self-righteous satisfaction. She stood, brushing invisible dust from her knees. Someone had to do it. These ugly stickers are an absolute eyesore. I don't know what kind of nonsense you're into, but in this neighborhood we keep things clean and presentable. You should thank me for cleaning up your mess. Her tone was so casually dismissive that it made my blood pressure spike. Thank her? For endangering me? I wanted to shout that this wasn't about appearances, that she had no idea what she was messing with. But Karen thrived on confrontation. I'd seen her in action before, screaming at a teenager for parking too close to her mailbox, threatening to call the cops on a family because their dog barked twice in a row, writing passive-aggressive letters and slipping them into everyone's mailboxes whenever trash cans weren't lined up at the exact angle she wanted. The more you argued with her, the more power she felt. I took a deep breath and tried to keep my voice calm. "Karen, that's not just a sticker. That's a legal notice. It has to stay there. If you remove it, I could get into serious trouble." She squinted at me over her sunglasses like I was speaking a foreign language. "Legal notice, please." "Don't exaggerate. You young people think everything is some big legal drama. It's just a sticker, and it's ugly. The HOA doesn't allow unsightly things plastered on vehicles, and I can't just sit by while you lower everyone's property values. Imagine if a prospective buyer drove by and saw this hideous thing. It looks like your car's been impounded or something. What kind of impression does that give?" Her words hit me like static, loud, irritating, but ultimately meaningless compared to the reality of my situation. I stepped closer to the car, my eyes darting to the sticker, or rather what was left of it. She had already peeled off more than half, leaving behind a ragged, curling mess of paper and adhesive. The bold black letters that once spelled out the notice were torn and incomplete. The official seal in the corner was now just a fragment. It was ruined. I felt my stomach drop. A rush of panic shot through me, heating my skin. The officer assigned to my case had been very clear. The sticker had to remain intact, visible, and untampered with. Tampering, even by someone else, counted against me unless I reported it immediately. I knew that, but the problem was explaining it without sounding like I'd failed to protect it in the first place. Would they even believe me if I said my neighbor ripped it off because she thought it was ugly? Karen, meanwhile, was still on her rant. Honestly, you should be grateful someone around here has standards. You've had that thing sitting there for months. Do you know how many people have complained to me about it? It's practically vandalism by neglect. If the HOA board finds out, they'll fine you. And honestly, you deserve it for letting it stay this long. I'm just saving you the embarrassment. The way she said it, so casually, so assured, like she was doing me some huge favor, made my hands clench into fists at my sides. I imagined for a moment what it would feel like to yell at her, to tell her the truth in a way that would actually shut her up. But the truth was heavy, humiliating even. I didn't want to stand there in the middle of the street and confess to Karen, of all people, that I was under court supervision, that the sticker wasn't just a random decoration but part of my probation. The thought of giving her that kind of ammunition, that kind of gossip to spread around the neighborhood, made me sick. So instead I bit down hard on my frustration and just said, "You had no right to touch my car." Her mouth twisted into a smirk. "Oh, please, don't be dramatic. If you're that upset about it, go buy another one of your silly stickers and slap it back on. Problem solved. But don't pretend like I'm the bad guy here. I'm just trying to keep this neighborhood respectable. Someone has to." I stared at her, the weight of her ignorance pressing down on me, and in that moment I realized two things. One, Karen was never going to admit she was wrong, no matter how much logic or reason I threw at her. And two, this wasn't just going to blow over. By ripping off that sticker, she had lit a fuse I couldn't extinguish on my own. The consequences were already spiraling toward me, and she had no idea what kind of damage she had done. As she strutted away, tossing the shredded pieces of the sticker into her garbage bin, like she'd just disposed of something filthy, I stood frozen beside my car, staring at the ruined windshield. My reflection wavered in the glass, distorted by the jagged remnants of adhesive. My pulse thudded in my ears, my chest tight with the knowledge that something as small as this, a sticker, could be the thing that unraveled everything I had worked so hard to rebuild. And Karen? She walked back to her house with her head high, humming like she'd just saved the neighborhood. She had no idea she'd just shoved me to the edge of a cliff I might not be able to climb back from. I rushed over to my car, heart hammering, but by the time I got there, Karen was already peeling the second sticker off with that same smug grin plastered across her face. The sun was dipping lower now, shadows stretching across the driveway, but I could see the satisfaction radiating from her like she'd just completed some heroic deed. She held the half-peeled sticker between two fingers, dangling it like a trophy, and when she noticed my expression, she smirked even wider. "You should thank me," she said in that condescending tone that scraped against my nerves. She held the shredded vinyl up to the light, squinting at the remnants of official-looking text before crumpling it in her fist. "I've saved you from making the neighborhood look trashy. Honestly, I can't believe you thought it was okay to leave something like this on your windshield for so long. I don't know what kind of delinquent stunt you're pulling, but I won't allow it." Her words buzzed in my ears, but all I could hear was the tearing sound still echoing in my mind. The sticker was gone. The first one had been destroyed already, and now the second one was curling in her palm, its adhesive useless, the court-issued seal shredded beyond recognition. My throat felt tight like I couldn't get enough air in. "Karen, do you understand what you've just done?" I forced the words out slowly, each one trembling with barely controlled panic. She laughed lightly, as if I'd cracked a joke. "Yes, I cleaned up your mess." "You're welcome. No need to make a big production out of it." My hands were trembling, so I shoved them into my pockets, trying to steady myself. It wasn't just about her messing with my property. It was about what that property represented. My probation agreement had been very specific. "Keep the sticker visible at..." Her voice was sharp, but the real sting was in my pocket. My phone buzzed, and when I pulled it out, my blood turned to ice. It was a text reminder from my probation officer. The screen lit up with the words, "Inspection tomorrow." Stickers must be visible. I felt the world tilt under my feet. Tomorrow. Not next week, not sometime later when I could figure this out. Tomorrow. Less than 24 hours from now, an officer would walk up to my car, check for those stickers, and find nothing. Torn scraps clinging stubbornly to the glass maybe, but nothing resembling the official notices that were supposed to be there. I stared at the text, my stomach twisting in knots. I'd been doing so well. Months of following every rule, making every check-in, attending every meeting, keeping my head down, avoiding trouble. I'd been clawing my way back to something resembling a normal life. And this stupid situation with Karen, was about to unravel it all. I shoved the phone back into my pocket and looked at her. Really looked at her. The self-satisfied smirk. The way she squared her shoulders like she'd just enforced some sacred law. She had no idea what she'd done. No clue that her petty obsession with neighborhood standards had just put me at risk of losing my freedom. And the worst part was she didn't care. "Karen," I said, my voice shaking despite my effort to steady it. "That wasn't just a sticker, that was a legal notice. If it's not there tomorrow, I could get in serious trouble. I'm talking fines, probation violations, maybe even jail time. Do you get that?" For the first time, her smugness faltered, but only for a split second. She tilted her head, lips pressed into a thin line. Then she scoffed. "Oh, please. Don't try to scare me with your little sob story. Jail time over a sticker? Ridiculous. That's just an excuse you're making because you're too lazy to clean up after yourself. If it was really that important, you wouldn't have left it on there for months. Don't blame me for your mistakes." Her dismissal hit me like a slap. She really believed she was untouchable, that she was right no matter what. She turned on her heel and started walking back toward her house, tossing the shredded remains of the sticker into her trash bin without a second thought. The gate creaked shut behind her, and I was left standing there staring at my car, my breath coming in shallow gasps. The windshield looked wrong now, naked and vulnerable. The ragged patches of adhesive clung stubbornly to the glass, little ghosts of what used to be there mocking me. I reached out and touched the spot where the sticker had been, the surface rough under my fingertips, and I felt a wave of helpless anger wash over me. What was I supposed to do? I couldn't replace the sticker myself. They were issued by the court, and they weren't something you could just reprint at home. And even if I called my probation officer immediately and explained, what would they think? That I'd let it happen on purpose? That I was lying? Would they even believe that a neighbor had ripped it off because she thought it was ugly? Or would they think it was just another excuse from someone trying to skirt the rules? I paced the driveway, my thoughts spinning out of control. My phone buzzed again, but I ignored it. I could already imagine the conversation tomorrow. The officer frowning, clipboard in hand, shaking their head. The stickers were supposed to be there. Why aren't they there? And me fumbling for words, trying to explain that my neighbor, Karen, the self-appointed queen of the HOA, had taken it upon herself to fix the situation. It sounded absurd, even in my head. I rubbed a hand over my face, the roughness of my stubble grounding me just enough to think. Maybe I could salvage the scraps. Maybe if I glued them back on, taped them somehow, it would be enough to show that they'd been there. But when I bent down and picked up one of the torn pieces Karen had missed, I knew it was useless. The fragment was too small, the print too shredded. It was like trying to reassemble a puzzle with half the pieces missing. Across the street, I caught a glimpse of Karen through her living room window. She was on the phone laughing, her body language relaxed and animated, probably telling one of her friends how she'd saved the neighborhood again. The sight of her sitting there, so pleased with herself, made my jaw ache from how hard I was clenching it. I wanted to storm over there, pound on her door and make her understand. I wanted to tell her that she hadn't just meddled in something minor, she had interfered in something that could destroy my life. But I also knew that would only make things worse. Karen thrived on drama, and if I gave her more fuel, she'd use it against me. So I stood there in the fading light, torn between rage and fear, knowing that tomorrow was coming whether I was ready or not. And Karen? She had no idea she'd just lit the fuse on a bomb that was about to explode in both our faces. The next morning, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the ruined stickers, the shredded pieces in Karen's hand, the smug tilt of her chin as she walked away. I tossed and turned in bed, my stomach clenched so tight it felt like I'd swallowed a stone. By the time the first pale light crept through the blinds, I was already up, pacing the floor like a caged animal. The reminder text from my probation officer echoed in my mind like a ticking clock. Inspection today. Stickers must be visible. I went outside before breakfast, my legs stiff from anxiety, and stood in front of my car. The windshield glistened with dew. the ragged adhesive patches dull against the glass. No matter how many times I rubbed at them, trying to smooth them back down or scrape them away clean, the damage was obvious. Anyone who looked would see that something had been there once and had been ripped away. There was no salvaging it, no pretending. My chest tightened every time I thought of my probation officer walking up, clipboard in hand, eyes narrowing when they saw the absence of what was supposed to be there. By 9 o'clock, I was a wreck. I kept glancing down the street, waiting for the inevitable arrival of the officer's car. My neighbors went about their morning as if everything were normal. Kids running toward the bus stop, sprinklers clicking on across lawns, a jogger waving to someone. But to me, the whole world felt tilted, heavy, suffocating, and then I saw her. Karen. She was out in her front yard wearing gardening gloves and clipping roses from the bush she was so proud of. She hummed to herself, moving with that same air of superiority like the queen of the cul-de-sac tending to her kingdom. Every clip of the shears was like a taunt. She had no idea what she'd done, no inkling that she had set me up to fail. To her, yesterday was just another victory, another example of her keeping the neighborhood clean. My phone buzzed in my pocket again, and I jumped. I fumbled it out and saw the text, arriving in 15 minutes. My breath caught. This was it. 15 minutes until everything came crashing down. I sat on the porch steps, elbows on my knees, trying to breathe evenly. Maybe if I explained it calmly. Maybe if I showed the officer the scraps in the trash or pointed to the adhesive on the glass. They'd understand. Maybe they'd believe me. But even in my most hopeful imagination, I could already see the doubt in their eyes. Hear the clipped tone of their voice as they said, "You were responsible for ensuring the sticker remained intact. That was part of your agreement." When the car finally pulled into the cul-de-sac, my heart lurched so hard I thought it might stop. The engine cut, the door opened, and there he was, Officer Daniels. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and carried himself with the weary authority of someone who'd seen every excuse in the book. Clipboard in hand, sunglasses reflecting the morning light, he walked toward me with steady, deliberate steps. "Morning," he said simply. His voice wasn't unkind, but it was firm, professional. He glanced at my car almost immediately, and I saw it. The slight narrowing of his eyes, the way his jaw shifted as he registered the missing stickers. My throat went dry. "Officer Daniels, I can explain." He held up a hand, stopping me mid-sentence. "Let me take a look first." He walked around to the windshield, leaned in, and studied the adhesive patches. His gloved finger traced one of the torn remnants. "They're not here." His voice was flat, factual. My stomach plummeted. I opened my mouth to speak, but before I could, a voice rang out from across the yard. She should be thanking me for that. I whipped my head around. Karen had abandoned her roses and was now striding across her lawn, chin high, eyes blazing with self-righteous triumph. She pointed at my car like she was making a dramatic courtroom reveal. "I'm the one who tore those ugly things off. They were disgusting. You should have seen them, officer. Lowering the entire neighborhood's value. I couldn't stand it anymore, so I fixed the problem." "You're welcome." The silence that followed was deafening. Officer Daniel straightened slowly, his head turning toward her with a kind of measured disbelief. "You removed the stickers?" Karen crossed her arms proudly. "Yes, I did. Somebody had to. They were an eyesore. This neighborhood has standards, and I won't let anyone drag it down with their trashy habits." Those stickers looked like something you'd see on an impounded vehicle. What kind of message does that send to potential buyers? I'll tell you what, none of them would want to live here. I was doing everyone a favor. The smugness in her tone made my hands curl into fists at my sides. I wanted to scream that she had no idea what she was admitting to, that she was essentially confessing to destroying court-ordered property. But Officer Daniels spoke first. His voice was low, measured, and it cut through.